Ready when you are.
I am. I'm thinking. Just relax.
It's like you guys are married.
Scott Shelley, what do you mean when you say you can choose to be happy?
Why? Because well, I've thought long and hard about that. Somebody asked me that the other day again, and you can choose a lot of things in your life. You can choose to smile, you can choose to frown. It's just you you're only here once, and if you want to walk around being depressed and a bummer and not making anybody else's life better, why be here? I mean, yeah, there isn't really another. When you really boil it down, there's no other alternative except to choose to be happy. If you ask me, so yeah, I've had some bad shit happen in my life, but it's what else are you gonna do though? There's a great living in London for 16 years. I'm a big fan of Winston Churchill, and he would often say, if you're going through hell, keep going. I mean, just keep doing, just get on with it. None of this. I think sometimes even today people wallow, and especially now that we've got social media, people get really caught up in being alone. And I mean, we just did I put it on my show yesterday. This is probably the best time to be alive as far as entertainment goes. We've got more entertainment hours in our lives than we've ever had since we've been on this planet. The medicine and education is the best it's ever been since we've been on the planet. And we've got people that have never been more sad. And I think that we have to learn how to be happy, and part of it is making that choice. And so I can sit around and wallow in all the things that have gone wrong in my life, where I can get on with it and make a difference and try to have a great life while I'm here. And so it's it's a good question, but it's a lot of different things that come to a head. It's not just this, you wake up one morning. Believe me, for 6 months after my daughter died, I wasn't suicidal because I could never do that, but I didn't care about living. But after a while, it wears off a little bit, and you're like, okay, if I'm going to be here anyway, I might as well make the best of it, because walking around like a black cloud, like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, isn't any fun. So you just choose not to be Eeyore, because you're going to brighten other people's lives up. You're going to have a better life yourself, and if your disposition is good, you're off to a pretty good start. So that's why I say choose to be happy. I know some people out there have had some bad stuff happen to them, but I have too, and this is, I have cancer. I could sit around and wallow about that too, but that's what I'm going to name my book. Your daughter's dead and you have cancer. The two worst things you can ever hear in your entire life. But you might as well, if you're here, you might as well try to have a good time. And so I don't know. I think choosing to be happy is a much better alternative than choosing to be sad or letting sad overtake you, because you're only here once, and so you might as well make the best of it. So that's why. I mean, it is a choice, and I think that some people do choose not to be happy. They just would rather get the sympathy and have people wallow with them. But I don't want to do that. I want to have fun. If you're going to be here, let's have fun.
Have you gone through other than right after your daughter's and your dad's death? Um, Other periods that you might have been just kind of extended sad, or is this always you, just always looking for to choose to be happy and look for the good?
Well, I mean, look, after my daughter died, and then 4 days later my dad died, I prayed to God again for the first 60 days that he would kill me in my sleep. I prayed every night, please take me. This is just too much. I mean, going to a funeral when you have that's the person you adore the most in your life, and the person that you admire the most in your life, both sitting up there dead in pine boxes. I mean, it's a pretty daunting thing, and a lot of people were worried about me. I never was worried about me. I have a great wife that was with me and shoulder to shoulder when that went by. But you have to make a choice that you're going to get through this, or or just chuck it in. And I had a great existence up until then. I had two great parents. I loved school. I loved athletics. I was successful in athletics. I'd been to Colorado to play football out there. I had a blast. I mean, I got to be there for the turnaround. I got to go to a bowl game. Little old me, I was third team All State in Illinois, which was okay. But to be able to make that team out there, and I mean that was a lot of fun. I played against guys that played the pros for years. I got to hit those guys on a daily basis. And by the way, my coach at University of Colorado ended up being in the College Football Hall of Fame. He won the national championship 2 years after I left. In 1990, I left. I graduated in '88. What an experience to be around a College Football Hall of Fame coach, and he had a huge impact on my life, as did my wrestling coach in high school. And so, you know, I had a great disposition, and life was good. I obviously have setbacks when you don't make this team or make the grade or you get the job. But other than that, I didn't have anything really big go wrong in my life until my best friend from college died, and that's where that 10 or 11, 12 year span of death and destruction really came across. And so some people turn their back on the Bible. They turn their back on their faith when that happens. I turn to it. I think it's a lot easier to get through stuff like that when you can turn to faith. And it made me a stronger Christian going through all the bad things. I don't know if that's common or not, but I'll tell you right now, you take solace in some of the things that you hear about, God only gives to those that what they can handle. And apparently, he thinks I was a badass because it wasn't easy. And but I now know, it's really funny. It's not funny, but sometimes I get in positions where I know that, man, my old self would be nervous. Like, I don't know if I'm interviewing, a big interview when I'm on TV, right, where I should be getting nervous because this guy's a big shot or whatever. I just remind myself that I sat in a church with my dead daughter and my dead father up at the front. I've been through the hardest thing anybody's ever going to have to go through. Why in the hell am I nervous about anything? And you know what? It calms me. It really does. So I meet these big shots a lot of times. They come through RFD TV in Nashville here or whatever. And I remind myself what I've been through. And you know what? It takes all the nerves away. I don't care anymore. You might be having your boss yell at you. You're like, you can't shake me. This is fine. I'm good to go. So it has. I've turned that negative situation into a sword that I use when I need to, and it's helped. But I think I'm sure there's some psychoanalyst and psychologists out there listening to what I'm going to say, going, "Man, I'm a huge candidate for psychoanalyst help." But I think I made it. I made it through it, and I cry. There's that. It's especially now they've got that Jim Valvano, ESPN 30 for 30. Something Survive in Advance or something. But they chronicles Jim Valvano's 1983 championship North Carolina State basketball team, as well as his cancer. And I really that really resonates with me about what he had to say. He ultimately succumbed to his cancer. But the willpower and how you handle things on a daily basis, the way he attacked what he had to do, it really resonates. And he says something there that in his life he liked to every single day he liked to laugh hard, cry hard, and spend some time in thought. And he says that's a full day. And you know what? Ever since I saw that, I subscribe to that. I cry every day, and I laugh hard every day, and I always spend some time in thought, deep thought, every day. I'm not going to say I meditate, but I definitely put time aside to think. So I think by myself a lot. I laugh. I have a lot of fun. I laugh with great friends, and every day I'll cry. Something will remind me of my daughter, my dad, my mom, or something. Especially now, like you mentioned yesterday in the podcast yesterday. But I think that's a very good way to look at it. And so you have a full day. You have a full life. You have to embrace those emotions. Don't hide them. Embrace them, and it makes you feel a lot better. And so I feel good. I feel great. It's defined me, but it's not gonna hold me back. So it's the way it goes. I drew the unlucky straw. How I'm gonna deal with it is my choice, and that's how I look at it.
I've never heard you mention faith before. Obviously, you just mentioned it now that it does play a role in your life. What role did it play during the darkest times?
Well, people, I've talked to people about it. It's not like I picked up and went to church every day, but you sit there and you think, okay, what is this about? What does this mean? Why this? Is it happenstance? Is it just really unlucky? And sometimes that's the case. I don't like to get too deep into things, but sometimes it just hurts so bad you have to kind of think of a bigger and broader thing. And I think that part of the process of grieving is that the mere thought that you're not going to see your daughter or your parents or whomever that's passed away anymore is pretty daunting. But if you think that or if you honestly believe that there's an afterlife and some sort of heaven, whatever your heaven looks like to you, I think that comforts you a little bit. Like you will see them again. I take great comfort from that. I believe in heaven. I believe in hell. I believe in heaven. I don't know what it will be like to be there, but I believe we have one. And I'll tell you, I've done a lot of traveling in my life, especially living in Europe and working for a Japanese. But I've been all over the world traveling, hundreds of thousands of miles. And I'm the only guy now. When we hit really rough turbulence at 38,000 feet, I don't care. Because two things. Number one, at 38,000 feet, I feel like I'm closer to my daughter than I was when I was on the ground. And number two, if something bad happens, I get to see her. So it's really funny you ask that because I don't want to die, but I'm not afraid of dying either. And faith plays a role of that. I think there's a bigger and better and a greater thing that I'm willing to, I'm not willing. I'm looking forward to enjoying, and when I do pass away. But I also am having fun down here with my wife and my grandkids, and there's a lot of fun I still have, left to do down here. And also, I try to spread a good word and be a good influence on other people's lives, and I have done over my life to to make other people better too. So to try to be a good example, and say that what, you don't have to let these things define you. I've been beaten down. I've lost wrestling matches or gotten beat on a football field or got hit in the head with a fastball playing baseball. But those things happen to everybody. It's the difference is how you handle it and how you get up and brush yourself off. And I just didn't think that there was anything useful in wallowing. And I also thought that looking to God and Christianity and my faith really really helped. Where a lot of people say that they would be angry, why me, or God, if there was really a God, they wouldn't have done it. Well, you know what? That's not really the case. Um, I believe that my daughter had a reason that she was taken, and there's a better reason for it that maybe I don't even understand. And I think that that's a really big thing, is because I think a lot of good people in my life, they believe in God because they don't believe that they're the ultimate arbiter. A lot of people that don't believe in God, they believe that they are the ultimate arbiter, and I don't think that's good. You'll see a lot of people that I think are really great people. They defer to a higher power. When you do that, you recognize that you're not the be all end all. But people that don't have faith, they don't defer to a higher power. They think that they are the be all end all, and I think that leads to problems. So it's strengthened my faith because um, I'm looking forward to the afterlife. I'm looking forward to living a good life on this earth while we're here, and I, I absolutely believe that there's a reason for all of this, and I'm not an absolutist. I think that everything happens for a reason. While some people do believe that, but at the same time, again, like I started off saying, God only gives to those that what He thinks they can handle, and apparently I can handle a lot. So bring it on. That's all I say.
You talk about the afterlife, after you're dead or anybody's dead, but and you talk about being defined. I mean, anybody looking at this looks at you and they see the trading jacket. They see kind of like the trading motions. I mean, you still kind of move your head and everything like every other trader on the floor of the board of trade or the Merc that I ever knew. But you're not trading anymore. And you have gone on to media, and quite frankly, so have I in a similar path. But a lot of people were not able to come out of that environment. You traded mostly in London, but you also were on the floor of the Chicago Board of Trade. So both of those. I'm. Were there people that had their day in your life, had their day in the pits, and then when it was time to move on, just kind of had trouble with that?
Yes, and it's not just pits; it's sports too.
Same,
Um,
yeah, same idea.
because people, there's a difference between being defined and there's a difference between associating with. Like, one of my really good friends in high school, um, uh, he uh, he was a football. He got a full ride to Texas as a football player, and at the time we were both seniors, and he got a lot more looks than I did, because on paper he looked fantastic. He was 6'4", 275 pounds. He could run a 4.7 40. I mean, he was magical. He was a parade All-American. And I was like a little fire hydrant, 6'1", 285 pounds. And, you had to time me in a 40 with a sundial. Right. And I didn't resent him. We were really good friends, but he only saw himself as a football player. I did not. I saw myself as me. And oh, by the way, I played football. And oh, by the way, I was a captain on the wrestling team. And oh, by the way, I was captain on the baseball team. But that wasn't who I was. I just happened to do them. But in his life, that was who he was. So when he went to Texas and got hurt, I think I think a lot of times his life spiraled down because he no longer was that person he was. And he was almost embarrassed about it. Like it was like he lost a part of himself. And when I stopped playing football, I didn't lose anything. I gained some more stuff. I was able to do more things. So I think that and the same thing with trading. Some people only identified. It's the difference between being defined or identifying with. They only identified with being a big trader. And when trading went away and it was all electronic and they couldn't do what they used to do before, they were just mere shadows of their former selves because that's who they were. But I never, ever once ever identified as a trader or a football player or whatever. Um, I was just me, and I happen to do those things, which is, I guess, the mirror image is a different way to do it because those things can get taken from you, but they can't take you from you. And so that's how I look at it because you're right. And we saw him in Chicago. I saw him in London as well. You you have people that only they identify as something, and that's who they are. And if they lose it, they are nothing. And I could never do that. I was the exact opposite. But that's a good question.
You know, the numbers, I guess if you look at the life expectancy of former traders, it's pretty low compared to the general population. And I just quit going to funerals and seeing all of my old trader buddies, but I agree with you in that it was difficult coming out of being a trader and trying to find something else. As a matter of fact, my one buddy said the only thing that we're really trained to do is like sell stuff. Other than that, there's nothing else you really learn that's a transferable skill. But you resurfaced as you got a national TV show. You are, I think you were just on Fox Business just a little while ago. I mean, you're a sought after personality. How did that happen?
Well, it's because I knew that I got lucky by being in London in the 90s. See, it's a smaller country. There's only about 60 or 70 million people compared to 330 million people here. It's the same with France, roughly. Obviously it's a smaller country, so it's more compact. But the what I saw there was technology. They could change their technology way faster than America. So all the TVs and the cell phones in Europe and in England were way better than what we had in America because America was so big, they couldn't change the technology fast enough to get it through the population without having to do it again. You know what I mean? So it was such a behemoth to change. And I saw electronic trading come in and take over the London International Futures Exchange um, fast and on fire, like it was like a brush fire. And there was a lot of people that are still in denial, and we still have some open outcry pits in Chicago, but compared to what we were, we're a mere shadow of ourselves. Like 2 or 3% is open outcry now. But I knew that, what, if I really want to be in this business for a long time, I got to be doing something other than trading. And doing it upstairs was okay. I was successful at that. It's better to be a broker upstairs than it is to be a trader. So when the market moved to, and just so people that are listening to this, if you trade on behalf of somebody else, putting orders in, buying and selling for somebody else, for a customer, you're a broker. If you're buying and selling on behalf of yourself, you're a trader. Being a trader in an electronic market is very, very difficult. But if other people want to trade and use you as a broker, then that's a little bit better, and you get a commission. You don't participate in the profit or loss of the trade. Being a broker upstairs, well, I was successful at it. That was good, and I liked doing it. But being a trader, I never even tried it because I thought that was a fool's game. I thought people, all I ever saw was people lose money. Maybe you could, agree to that, but that was a fast way to give away any severance that you might have gotten when you got let go from a firm you were with. So I saw how quickly everything changed. I thought, I'm going to make sure that I got one of my feet in a lily pad, and I started doing more and more media. And then when I came back in 2002, that's when it really exploded. We had a ton of money come into the commodity markets. I mean, billions and billions and billions of dollars. And with that came, I think I talked about this in an earlier podcast, but with that came a ton of media. Media followed the money. I was wearing a black and white cow jacket because I wanted to be, with my father, or at least, give my father a little bit of a shout out. And that's why I thought maybe I got to do this TV thing. And so, you know what? I started doing that and making moves and when I was 37 years old. And it took me until I was 55 before it came to fruition. So what's that, 18 years? And so that's how long the changeover took, because it doesn't happen overnight. You go to be a broker upstairs a little bit first. Then that goes okay, but you still have this. I still had this niggling dream. I knew I could be good on TV, and I loved it. I did a show today. It was a great show. I love. I do something different than nobody else does. By the way, this is coming from my producer, my news director who runs the station. I have 6 guests in an hour, so basically 6 or 7 minutes per guest plus advertisements, commercials. But I will introduce the guest, and I'll have a small monologue of 4 or 5 sentences about what I want to talk about, and then there's there's really nobody else out there that doesn't script all the questions that you have to talk to the guest about. I go 100% free form. I do not have any scripted questions. I want to be able to talk about whatever the guy wants to talk about, and a lot of people don't want to do that because they're afraid that you're going to catch them out and they're going to ask you something you don't know about. And every now and again, once in a million years, that happens to me. But with my experience and living over in Europe and then trading all the European markets and having to trade commodities and having to trade bonds and having to trade stocks, I mean, I've got a wealth of experience that I've been able to draw upon, and so I can hang with anybody that wants to talk about anything on my show, and it's a lot of fun. It's great, but it took me 18 years to get there. And then the 18th year, I finally pulled the plug and did 100% full-time media. It's hard to walk away from something you've been doing for your entire life, like I'm sure you can agree, and then try to see if you can make money in the new thing, because you're not going to make a lateral move. You're going to have to take a pay cut in the new thing that you start and work your way back up again. There's not a lot of lateral movement with the money that we were making on the floor. So it was all me just trying to pad my life going forward, so I had something to do till I retired. Plus, it's always been a dream. And so I got lucky that RFD TV down here in Nashville offered me that opportunity when I was 4.5 years ago. And I jumped at the chance, batten down the hatches, try to eat a lot of top ramen and macaroni and cheese because you're not making a lot of money, but then grow into something that you can build. And then that's something that you can take for going forward. And it's worked out. It's been great. And I didn't know for sure if it was going to be great, but I knew that I wanted to give it a good shot. I knew I was good at it. And this is where we're at here today. So I couldn't have planned it any better. I'm very, very lucky, but I also have talked to other new people that want to get into media, and I tell them it took me 15, 18 years to get this to where I am, number one. And number two is that given the opportunity to talk on any network, whether it be radio, podcast, or television, I always said yes. I never, ever said no. Whether it may be Al Jazeera coming out of Saudi Arabia or the Russian channel, RF, whatever it's called, I always did the interviews because I wanted to get more practice, get better at learning to listen to different accents. And I always said yes. I never turned down an interview, whether it may be at any time of the given night. If I had to get up at 2 in the morning to do it, I would do it. So it's something I could see happening, and I got a really good look at it in Europe because their technology, they could change technology and they could change the way they did business way faster than we could in the States because they were so small. They were much more nimble and quick. That's how I moved out of the trading realm, all the while staying in finance, but then going from say talking about finance, then actually doing it. So I kind of feel like Tony Romo, I played the game, but now I get to talk about playing the game. That's a lot of fun. I kind of feel a little bit like, John Madden. Yeah, I know, because I look like him. I'll take the joke out of your mouth. But I love the way John Madden did it because he's got an air of genuineness about him. And people really relate to that. And so I did it. I was in the trenches, but now I can talk about it and talk about it with some confidence. And I got to be honest with you, if I interview 30 people a week, 6 people a day for 5 days, there's only probably one other person I interview that ever traded on the floor. All these people are upstairs managing money. They've never been in that environment, which is really kind of odd.
Wow, it is. I mean, at some point, I would like to go into that part of it a little bit. I mean, obviously, both Scott and I come out of the pits, and I've known some real tragedies after, and quite frankly, I was close myself. But we're going to end it there. Scott Shellady, otherwise known as the Cow Guy, he has never combed his hair. He's faced a lot of challenges in life and has a certain tweak on everything that he's sharing with us, and I hope you find it interesting. And you can always watch him on RFD and do his free form interviews, kind of like what that is today. So, Scott, thanks a lot. Until next time, all right?
All right, Jim, thanks.
All right, guys, until next time with you too. And we'll have Scott Shellady and the Cow Guy. Until next time, see you later.